Hello, my name is Hector Velazquez and welcome to another episode of GCSAA Inside the Shop. So, you're ready to lay down some epoxy on your shop floor. Well, before you do that, we want to make sure that you're picking the right product for your application. We also want to make sure that you're prepping your floor correctly. That way, when you lay your epoxy down or whatever product you're using, you want to make sure you get as much life out of it as you can. Now, we have a lot to cover. We got some places to go, so let's get started. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is get my shop cleared out. Now I'm going to also take this as an opportunity to kind of rearrange my shop. I've been wanting to do it, and this is a very good excuse to do it. Now I got a small shop, so I have to move everything from one side to the other, do half the shop, wait for that to dry, and then move it back over, and then start on that end. So this is going to be a little bit of a project for me. Alright, now we prepped our floor about 3 years ago. We actually ground the concrete, and what we used initially was a Rust-Oleum product that we got, a garage floor coating. We still went and got a concrete grinder and ground the concrete completely. Now, after talking to a couple representatives at Sherwin-Williams, we're using HS tile clad, and I explained to them my situation, and they assured me that I'm going to be perfectly fine, with the exception that I would take a hand concrete grinder and just kind of touch up the areas where, if any of the previous paint has gotten loose. Now, I did have some issues around the drain area, and the only reason I had issues in the drain area is because the concrete grinder didn't really curve down to grind that area correctly. I would definitely recommend getting a grinder and properly prepping your floor. Now, you want to make sure that when you're using something like this, you want to be in a well-ventilated area. My shop is a really small shop. I have the shop door open, plus I have a fan running, and you want to make sure that you wear protective equipment. Now, you are okay to use water, and that'll help keep the dust down, but I'm doing really a small area with this thing. I don't want to have an open pour concrete get wet, because that's just going to take a few days for this stuff to dry, and I'm a little bit pressed for time. And when you're using an actual concrete grinder that you rent at the store, you're more than welcome to use water. Just remember, you want to wait a few days for that to dry up really good. Now in this case, we have our, let's just call it our primer coat down. I'm just going to make sure that it's properly degreased. I don't have any oils in the floor. So I'm going to give it a really good scrubbing and get that any dirt, debris out of that floor. And I'm making sure to keep water away from that bare area. Alright, now here's some of the epoxies or floor coverings that I have used in the past. One of the cheapest route is concrete stain. Stuff is really good, very cheap, and it works. The next stuff I also used before is the one-part epoxy. It's okay, it's good stuff. Just remember, no matter what you choose, just prep your floor, and whatever you use is going to last. Now this is the stuff that I used on my current floor, and it's done a really good job. It's really lasted a long time. Now the epoxy that we're going with is by Sherwin-Williams HS Tile Clad. It's a two-part epoxy. This epoxy I've used over and over and over again in all my shop makeovers. I absolutely love this epoxy. It's great, it goes down really nice, and it lasts a super long time. We got the base and the hardener. We're gonna mix it in a bucket, and we're gonna have to let it sit for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, we have 6 hours to lay this epoxy out. On top of the epoxy, we are going to be using some paint chips. We're ready, so let's get started. Alright, so here is part A. We're going to mix both of these in a 5-gallon bucket. And then we got the hardener, which is part B. And after a good stirring for about 5 minutes, we'll let it set for 30 minutes, the sweating period, and then we're just going to apply. I cut it in, we roll it on, and we're set. And there it is. Great opportunity. I mean, the floor looks absolutely fantastic. It really brightened it up in here. I was able to kind of reorganize my shop a little bit, so it's much more open. I mean, it just looks really good, really excited. As you can see, I didn't use a lot of flakes at all. I used a really light application of the flakes, and the flakes really does a great job at disguising any imperfections on your floor. Now the next step, I need to invest on some runners and pads and carpets for the floor. I like what Skip says, right? You want to treat your floor like a piece of equipment. You invested a lot of time and money into it. You want to take care of it. I want to thank you for joining me here today on GCSA 8 Inside the Shop, where we're helping technicians one wrench at a time.